From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
Welcome to a very special Labor Day edition of Tiger Cats Game Day on the Ticats Audio Network. I'm Courtney Stephen, joined as always by my partner in crime, Mike Daly. Mike, it's Labor Day, man. How's it feel?
Oh, it's awesome, man. This is the closest you can get to a playoff atmosphere at Tim Hortons Field. And, you know, the nice thing is the 1 o'clock game, so everybody's all jacked up to be out there. The fans, you can hear them, you can feel them. These are some of my favorite games that I've ever played. And I know, you know, you'd probably agree, but these ones in regular season is the Labor Day by far, and then all the playoff games. Those are my favorite games to play just because of the awesome atmosphere that the fans create. And, you know, I don't expect it to be any different this Labor Day.
Absolutely. The 3-8 Ticats are home to face their rivals, their bitter arch enemies, the 5-5 Toronto Argonauts. And this Labor Day matchup, they always hold weight, but this one is a little bit more important just because this is the fourth of 4 competitions that these two teams have had this year. There's going to be a crossover this year from the West Division going into the playoffs, meaning that there will be 4 Western teams most likely going into the playoffs and only 2 from the East. So every game in the East matters as far as climbing to the top of that Eastern Division. This one is going to be doubly important. So if you're not watching the Labor Day Classic, you better be listening to the Labor Day Classic because this isn't going to be one you want to miss. And today will feature a special halftime concert performance with award-winning country artist Tim Hicks, presented by WeatherTech. Tim Hicks halftime today. So what more could you ask for on Labor Day? So some good old-fashioned country music
to get you fired up for the the festivities of the day. But also don't forget one other thing that is huge, right? 50-50. Today's Labor Day Classics 50-50 jackpot is a guaranteed $50,000. Guaranteed $50,000, right? Tickets on sale now. Brought to you by Hamilton Bulldogs Foundation. License number RAF 1235466. Again, $50,000 guaranteed. Get your tickets in for this Labor Day because, hey, who doesn't want $50,000, right, Court?
Yeah, I made a little bit of money playing football, but I never made $50,000 in a single day. So it's a pretty good deal, man.
That was never my game check. No way.
For the love of the game, they said. Well, hey, let's hop into it. Let's talk a little bit about this. The Ticats this year, they are 3-8. And while that's not the record that you want, there are some things going in their favor headed into this game. All 3 of those wins did, in fact, come at Tim Hortons Field. And one of those wins did come against the Argos. So the formula on how they need to win this game has actually been laid out, but a few of the puzzle pieces have changed. Now, over the course of this year, this is going to be the 4th time that these teams have met. This will be the 4th time that we've done a pre-game breakdown. And Milt from the Spec and our friend Louis Butko pointed out that over the last 365 days, including playoffs and including preseason, these teams have clashed for now 10 times. So instead of running down the entire roster for you, I thought it would be interesting if we talked about a couple of new faces and just talk about what they would bring to the game when we see them step onto the field, if we see them step onto the field. Specifically, I'm talking about Jamie Newman and David Baird. Now, first, let's start with David Baird. He's the center. He's a 7-year pro. He's played 94 games for Edmonton. He's a Canadian, so he gets that maple leaf next to his name on the roster. And both David Baird and Colin Kelly played offensive line for Coach Mike Gibson when Coach Mike Gibson spent those 3 years in Edmonton. Now, Baird had a great season in 2019, and among his teammates and his coaches, he was voted to be the most outstanding most outstanding offensive lineman for Edmonton in 2019. So the person who they picked up in the trade for Jesse Gibbon, not only did they trade Jesse Gibbon and a second round pick in the next draft, they received David Baird and a fourth round pick in that next draft. So they gave away, one of their guys for a veteran who could come in and contribute right away. What does that do to upgrade this offensive line and this offense for the Ticats?
Well, I mean, you look at it and you go, where's the run game, right? Whether it's the run game of Don or some of the quarterbacks, right? Schultz was kind of the guy that was sparking that. And I bet that's what the Ticats coaches were saying, right? We need somebody in here that, number one, to get a guy that was most outstanding offensive lineman for a team in 2019, right? Not too long ago. To be able to get that guy and bring him in and get him be able to play beside an old teammate for an old coach, that makes that transition that we talked about with Randall Jr., right? How difficult that transition is coming over to a new team, learning a whole new system. That takes that almost out of it. Now, there's going to be little nuances that he's going to have to learn, especially for this game. But it really takes those out of it. So now you're not even just thinking about playing. You're actually able to go out there and execute and do well. So you can tell the Ticats are really trying to find something right now, something to be able to get this, whether it's the run game going or protect somebody, because right now you look at the run game is non-existent at this point, which I don't think is as big of a deal, right? Because you can get away with getting the ball out early and all that stuff, but you got to protect the quarterbacks, because right now that's the injury bug, right? If you're looking at a position to have, Dane banged up, Matt Schultz being out, right? And now we're talking about Jamie Newton and Jalen Morton. I mean, you gotta get somebody new in there, and that's what the Ticats did and picked up a good one.
And especially with Alex Fontana, the Canadian center, out of the lineup. We know that Darius Sirocco moved over to Ottawa before the season began. So that center spot was one where they were working with newer faces. Jesse Gibbon, a younger guy who had been coming into his own, but I think they wanted to advance that development track and just skip to getting a vet. So they'll definitely do that. And to your point, it helps to have the chemistry of playing for the coach, Mike Gibson, like that's going to cut down a lot of the language barrier, I would assume, because typically in football, there's only so many concepts, but it's the way that the coach delivers them, how they communicate them, and then also just the relationship in how they communicate them, the way that they talk to you as a coach, that matters also. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Baird gels with the offensive line, but I expect him to be a lift right off of the bat. I don't expect to see anything less than somebody who can plug and play. And thinking about making plays, let's talk about Jamie Newton. Now, we know Matt Schultz, he's been ruled out along with 11 other players on this Ticats roster that are out, long-term injuries. So there's a lot of guys who have been called to duty to step up and to make plays. Now, Dane Evans did participate in full day 1, day 2, and day 3 in practice, but I would not be shocked to see a heavy dose of Jamie Newton. Now, who is Jamie Newton? This guy played at Wake Forest. He was only the full-time starter for 1 full season in his college career. He emerged as a backup in his redshirt sophomore year, and in the final few games of the season and in the bowl game, he had a great showing. So when he got his shot and he stepped into the limelight, he had 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, plus 6 rushing. And when I put on the film to really dig in and see what is Jamie Newton's game, what does he bring, and what can Ticat fans expect, I thought back to when Jeremiah Masoli was first stepping in, back when they were transitioning from Zach Caleros to Jeremiah. And I see a lot of the same things in that Jamie Newton is not afraid to throw the deep ball. I think that's what he might bring to this offense. Of course, the coach is going to dial up plays. They're going to have your reads that you're supposed to go through. But when you're the guy who's coming in off of the bench, or you're the guy who is not the ordained starter from day one, there's a little less pressure on you to do exactly what the coach said. And you can go out there and try and make something happen because, hey, it's not really your job to lose anyways. You're just there to create a spark. And so with a guy like Jamie Newton, he's comfortable throwing the deep ball. He likes to move. He's strong. He can actually break tackles and make moves in the open field to extend plays. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in the game and he puts one up for Stephen Dunbar Jr. or Tim White, and he tells those guys, hey, I love the bubble. I love the screen game, but I want to see you 20, 25 yards downfield. Have you seen anything from Jamie Newton that excites you if he were to get into the game?
Well, yeah, you look back at when he got in earlier, right, in the season, and it was that entire third quarter. And, Tommy dialed up a lot of run plays and a lot of like power run stuff. And I think only gave him about 1 or 2 pass plays. And he took control of that entire third quarter when he got his opportunity. He came in there, he took control and really took control when the offense was struggling, right? So by the time he came in, this was, after Schultz got hurt, Dane was already out. Schultz got hurt, had to go into the locker room. He came in and he did an awesome job. And he really kept that game alive against Ottawa when he was just marching the ball down the field the entire third quarter. Now, after hearing what you said about him being able to air the ball out, I would like to see Tommy give him some plays if he's going to be in there, right? Open it up a little bit. And you remember the transition from Matthew Schultz from the Argos game, the second Argos game. Jeez, it's so hard to keep track of when they played, right? But the second Argos game, Schultz came in and was kind of that running quarterback. Then you fast forward to Montreal and they open up the playbook for Matthew Schultz. And that's when he threw for 300 yards and looked really good. You know what I mean? And ended up losing a tight one. But I thought Matthew Schultz, the playbook allowed him to be free. And exactly what you said, when you come in there and you're just looking to make plays, you're finding your guys that are going to get open for you, right? That's Tim White, Stephen Dunbar, and you're getting that ball out, right? And if he's going to air that thing out, that's going to be exactly what the Ticats need in this situation, right? Get that ball deep, get it out there, because we really got to focus on limiting the turnovers, right? And that really was the story of that last game.
Yeah, and not all turnovers are created equal. I think I heard a few different analysts talk about this one, but if you throw a deep ball and that's intercepted, it's almost akin to a bad punt sometimes in the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, it takes away points. And, there's other things. You never want to have a turnover. But if you throw a pick six or you fumble in the backfield, that's automatically you're flipping the field, if not giving up points without your defense getting a chance to defend. So I don't have a problem with somebody coming out there and dialing up the deep ball, especially because this is an offense that was built on the sail route. It was built on the late post. It was built on split the safety and make him choose between the seams. And I want to just see a little bit more of that. Can we put Royce Mechie in stress? Can we put Deshaun Amos in stress? Can we put 2 receivers in the zones? Because I don't know. I think that's where the advantage is when you have guys who have the speed and who have the route running ability that these Ticats receivers have. But before we dive into the matchups, I want to talk a little bit about the trends, how we got to where we are, and what lies ahead, because it is a grim outlook from a first glance. But actually, this East Division race, for a lot of reasons, is way tighter than the West Division race.
It's heating up now too, right?
Exactly. And you have Winnipeg, who has a potential to clinch a playoff spot this week, depending on how the chips fall. But we still have a neck and neck battle between Toronto, Montreal, Hamilton, and now Ottawa. With their recent win over Montreal, they have brought their name back into the fold. So with 11 games played, Montreal has 4 wins, which gives them 8 points. And with 11 games played before this matchup, Hamilton and Ottawa both have 3 wins. Now, Ottawa and Hamilton are going to play a home and home to wrap up the season late in October. So those are shaping up to be important games. But after Winnipeg, which would be the next opponent for Hamilton on September 17th, Hamilton has to play against Montreal, and that will be a big game. And all of the rest of these East Division teams have to play each other. So when we're looking at the record purely, 3-8, it looks bad. But make no mistake, first place in the East is 5-5. Second place is 4-7. So technically, all you got to do right now is get ahead of Montreal. And whether you're Ottawa or Hamilton, you have to be in the locker room saying to yourself, guys, this is the furthest thing from over. Like, this is right before us if we handle our business. Is that not the message?
Hey, and I'm going to go back to what you said, Court, because it was so awesome. It was, it's the battle of who has the cleanest dirty shirt, right? Because really that's when you start looking at it, you go, wow, this East Division at the end of the season, right? It is because obviously they just keep beating each other, right? Everybody just keeps beating each other. So this East Division at the end of the season is going to be exciting to watch. But the conversations that are probably happening in each of the buildings is like, oh, the world's on fire because we can't win games, right? But that's happening in every single East Division locker room right now. It's the world's on fire. We can't win games, but we're in the playoff race for first place, right? And a bye. Like, it's this weird world of you don't feel like your team is playing very well, but you're like, hey, we got to keep going, right? We can't just sit here and try to lick our wounds and try to figure out what's going on. We got to go out and win, and we can have a first round bye. So, and I want to put this back onto you, because when you play a team like Toronto for the 4th time, and clearly morale is probably not the highest in the Ticats locker room, right? Not sure about the Argos room at this point. They are first, but they're still not doing great. So you play a team 4 times. The morale's not high, but you have to win this game to keep yourself, afloat in this East Division. What is that prep like? What is this prep week like when you got this division or this game 4 times in a row? So you're on your final 4th game, but you're losing tough games and injuries are around. And what does this week look like in terms of, how you're feeling as a player and what you kind of have to like wrap your head around to get up for this Labor Day game?
Well, I think you start this saga, this epic quartet of matchups. You begin with an analysis of your opponent to see their tendencies and what they've been bringing into the game. Then after you play them 3 times, you know who they are, you know what they want to do, and you know how they want to attack you. So I believe that you're going to go heavier on the self-scout headed into this game. Not that teams don't generally self-scout, but there's enough on film now where you see who has a hard time getting to the flat when they're playing as a low corner. Who is trickling up the field a little too deep and giving up the underneath. All right, we need to address that in practice, coach, because on the 2nd and 8s, we're giving them a ball that's completed for 6 yards and they're falling forward and getting a first down. I think those are the adjustments that you're making at this point in the series, is self-scouting to say, we have the linebackers have been doing a great job on, hugging up on the check down, but we're exposing ourselves to the dig and getting wrapped on 2nd down behind the linebackers. I think those are the things you're looking for. Or even on special teams, we've been showing this look and it's vulnerable to a block from, a double runaround or whatever it may be. So we got to make sure that this week we clean that up, because they haven't called it. They haven't dialed it up. They may be wanting to dial it up now. It's going to be heavy on the self-scout. If I was a coach, that's what I would be doing, looking inward, because quite honestly, where else can the improvement come from? There's nobody coming to save this team. Nobody is going to swoop down off of a building with a cape on and say, don't worry, guys, I got new plays and new players. Mm-hmm. No, aside from David Baird, it's just the guys. And Coach O firmly believes in these players. He picked them. And if you ever been around, he's still as confident as he was on day one on the guys being in the room. And I'll be honest, just being around the team, they are a great group, meaning the chemistry is there. People aren't fighting at practice. People aren't talking down on each other, pointing fingers or blaming. And I think that's what you need. You need a team that can stick together through the turbulence. How would you prepare going into this game personally if you were in that seat, in that meeting room?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I would also be looking at what was open. What are the Argos looking at against us as the Ticats, right? That's what I'd be looking at, because I would go, okay, what do they think they have, right? Whether it is that dig you were talking about, right? The 12 yards in behind the linebackers. If that is open consistently, okay, well, they're probably going to come back to that, right? They're going to see if it's open again this game. Where are they seeing that, maybe somebody was being lazy in a high zone, right? Not getting high enough, and the deep routes were able to kind of creep in behind those high zone players. And then switching over to the other side of the ball, it'd be offensively. You look at it and you go, hey, if we're just a little smarter with the ball, we can pull out these games. So now it really goes back to this training camp mode, kind of how you were talking about, how it's a self-scout as opposed to not so much about the other team, but more so about, okay, what are we doing well? Because at this point, you've almost emptied the clip on what you have game plan wise to be able to switch things up and make it look a little different, right? You might end up on a kickoff return, doubling the next guy, the number 4 on their kickoff team, as opposed to their number 3, just as a different look, but it's really the same thing at the end of the day. So that's kind of how I would look at it, because again, you look at this team and you say, if they could just control the turnover battle, these games are, and you look at the last Argos game, that's the issue, right? So what I'm looking for coming in this game, especially in the matchup situation, is David Baird in there, right? With our quarterbacks a little bit banged up, whether it's Dane, whether it's Jamie coming in, whether it's Jalen getting a couple reps. I'm looking for Don Jackson to show up and make some plays in this game. That's my matchup. And I know matchups are one versus somebody else. It's Don Jackson versus how he can affect this game. That's because I think you and I both know Don well, and we've seen him play when he's at the top of his game. Don is a game breaker, right? When he gets rolling, he can make those plays. And this is where we need to start to see him, right? Because when you talk about this race and the weather getting a little bit colder, right? The weather's going to turn a little bit, right? We're getting into September. That's when the running backs, that's when the run game really ramps it up. How about you, Court?
I love Don Jackson's energy. He's come into this game and he's had about 2 games with around 50 or so yards each, which is the highest for the season. He's been the biggest contributor by the volume that he's been able to get, but they're not getting a ton of touches to the running back, and that's not their DNA. I'll tell you right now what their DNA is heading into this week of games. -21 in the turnover differential, putting them at the bottom of the barrel for the league. And you know where Toronto was? 0 dead even. That would put them middle of the road, 5th in the CFL. I think that right there is your whole entire storyline. Now, how do you work on that? Yeah, maybe you do give the ball to Don Jackson, and maybe you do give it to Sean Thomas Erlington, and maybe you do give it to, no, you can't give it to the quarterbacks, but give it to those 2 guys because they're more than capable. Of course, yeah, they're going to be some quarterback design runs, but I think at a certain point in time, the players who are paid to make plays, you got to trust them and give them the opportunity. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cool or a great designed play. Sometimes I remember we played in college when I was at Northern Illinois, we played against Wisconsin, and Big Ten football is line up, power left, power right, zone left, zone right. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't fancy. They just moved people out of the way and ran the ball. Now, granted, the quarterback was a guy named Russell Wilson, and he was pretty good, but The offensive line moved people and the run game moved the ball. I think if you can get back to those basics, it opens everything else up. There was 6 turnovers last game, 6 for the Ticats compared to 1 for their opponent. And I think outside of that stat there, of course, there's plays where there's, a potential touchdown dropped in the end zone. There's, missed tackles here and there. I think they've been doing a good job of clearing those up. But if you had to wave your magic wand and do one thing, it's take care of the ball. Now, how do you take care of the ball? I like the idea of running it, getting that defense for the Argos to have to draw up and put more people in the box, which would create more space for your receivers. But I say outplay the Argos defense. And I'm going to call out the guy who I think has been having probably his best season since he's been on this team, Tunde Adeleke. If anybody can do it, he's in the back. He sees everything. He's got speed. He can pop you in the mouth, and he knows how to get where the ball is going to be. I want to see him put his hands on the football in the biggest game of the year. And don't just take the ball. Tunde used to return. I want to see him score. Because if he does that, not only is he going to solidify himself as the best safety in this league, which I think that he is, but great players don't just make plays. They make great plays on the biggest stage with the brightest lights. And I think Tunde's ready to step into his glow. Today could be his day.
Yeah, I like that too, because you're absolutely right. Tunde is the best safety in this league. They ask him to do so many different things that you won't see a Canadian safety do. Right. He is blitzing the passer, right? He gets in there and he lights quarterbacks up, absolutely lays a lick on them, right? And then he's also having to go over and cover man to man on some of these receivers. If they go a 23 set, so 3 receivers into the short side of the field and 2 receivers to the field side, right? He has to go down there and he has to cover, right? That's when you see Cam Kelly go back as a safety spot. So really, we say safety, but he is a full-on defensive player because he does absolutely everything for the Ticats. You'll see him line up. I bet one time this game you see him line up at defensive end. And Court, that's fun when you get to go down there as a safety, as a defensive end, line up where Mason Bennett or Hauser lines up. But the other guy I want to point to, because I think he's been having an awesome season. And like you said, big players make big plays in big-time games, right? Labor Day is a big-time game. Against the Argos, big-time game. East Division battle, big time game, right? Jovan Santos Knox has been having an unbelievable season, right? A quiet season in the sense where you don't see him show up all that much because he's just making tackles. Gain of 1, gain of 0, tackle. Next thing you know, you look at the stat sheet, he's got almost 10 tackles a game, right? Because he is just stopping those runs. When you talk about the Ticats run defense, it flushes to him and he makes play after play after play. So what I want to see now from Jovan, and I know he's talking to himself in that locker room saying, I got to make bigger plays. I want to see a ball pop out when he makes one of those tackles. Get his helmet on the football. See that thing pop up into the air. Or when he drops into that zone right in front of McLeod Bethel Thompson, if he wants to start throwing those digs we were talking about, Court, or maybe a quick slant to somebody like Brandon Banks, perhaps, I want to see him step in front of one of those things and take that thing away, because you're right. The defense needs to help this offense out, especially with that turnover ratio that is grim, gloom, whatever you want to call it. It's not in a good situation, right?
Jovan Santos Knox does have 62 tackles for 4th in the CFL right now.
See, and that's what I mean. And you don't really, he just keeps showing up, right? He keeps showing up, keeps making all these tackles. They're not flashy, but they're exactly what the defense needs to get them off the field. So I'm really, really expecting him to make an impact in this game. And like you said, with Tunde and with Jovan, big players make big time plays in big time games. And this is a big time game, so it's about time.
It's a big time game, and the lights will be bright. What is the storyline that you're watching? I don't know if it's one storyline, but I know specifically what I'm looking for. I want to see no excuses, no drops, no free points for the other team, meaning the defense doesn't even get out there and get a chance to defend, or the defense takes a play off and blows a cover. No easy buckets. no drop balls, no reason to not go deep 7 or 8 times, like twice a quarter. Why not? Let it rip. You got the dogs to do it, or even whatever, the horses. You got the cats. You got a whole barn full of beasts. Use them down the field. I want to see the play that made Speedy be into the receiver that he is. I want to see the deep sail, that flood concept where they run off the corner deep. They put some bait down there by the line of scrimmage out near the sidelines, and they separate that defense vertically, and then they run a receiver late, bending in towards the sideline. That is one of the hardest concepts to defend if you're not in strictly man-to-man coverage. And if they get in the right situation down and distance off of study, dial that up. Dial up the sail route, please. Ticats fans, if they run the sail concept, please just know I'm somewhere cheering. And run 4 verticals. You know what I mean? Like, get the ball down the field. They have the offensive line now to support. In the beginning of the year, I don't think that they had the confidence that they could sit back there, 5-step drop, let these routes develop, and then let it go. But it's a different offensive line now. They got big men up front now, and I think they've had some time to gel. Now let's sit back there in the pocket and throw that thing 20, 25 yards in the air downfield. Tim White's one of the fastest people in the league. Let him run. I mean, these are the storylines I'm paying attention to. What's your key storyline that you're watching?
So just to recap, Court wants perfection from the offense, which I love, and throw the ball deep every single play.
Pretty much, yeah.
I love it because that's exactly what it is, man. It's get some explosions. But listen, before we get to my storyline, one big thing that I love this initiative that Pure Later does, but it's a Pure Later Tackle Hunger, right? So fans, before you head out to the game today, help the Pure Later Tackle Hunger initiative. Please bring a non-perishable food item to the game to support Hamilton Food Share and help us tackle hunger in Hamilton. And let's win that too. Why not?
Yeah,
right? I'm a
every year
person.
Hamilton does a great job bringing the food out. Like, why not? You have some canned corn on the shelf that you are not gonna eat. Bring that,
especially that sweet corn.
Yeah. Nah, I like me some sweet corn now. So whoever is on the receiving end will appreciate it. Bring out all the ramen, all the corn, all the pasta, all the non-perishables. It would be greatly appreciated. Mike, what's your storyline?
Yeah, so what I'm looking for is I'm going to kind of piggyback off what you said, is when the Ticats are playing really well, it's because the defense is making big time plays. So my storyline here is the DBs, when they get their hands on the ball, to catch it. So guess what, Kurt? On the defense, no drops, no missed tackles, right? And let's get to McLeod Bethel Thompson. Let's get to him, right? Let's get some negative plays for this offense so that we can flip the field and help our offense out, right? Help the Ticats offense out so that we can figure out a way to get that ball into the end zone, right? And that's going to start on the defensive side. So I'm looking for big plays. Like I said, like we were talking about with Tunde and with Jovan, right? They need to make big impact plays. They're making a lot of good plays. We need to turn those plays into great plays. And that's what I'm looking for from this Ticats defense.
Well, if it hasn't already been said, there's nothing left to say. It is Labor Day. 3-8 Ticats looking to get that 4th win at the Donut Box versus a 5-5 Toronto Argos. And if you're not going to be able to make it because it is a sold out event, I know there's a couple standing room only tickets available if you really want to get in the building, but the next best place for you to check out the game is at listen.ticats.ca. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. My name is Courtney Stephen. For Mike Daly, we hope you have a great game day.
Monday, Tim Hortons Field. WeatherTech is pleased to present Tim Hicks. This year's Labor Day Classic will feature a special halftime concert performance featuring award-winning country artist Tim Hicks. WeatherTech, Tim Hicks. Halftime on Labor Day in the Hammer.